Hey guys, it's Sarah, and today is Booklist Thursday. So this is a video series that my friend Lisa and I are doing. Lisa's channel is called Books and Smiles, so please check the link down below and go check her out if you haven't already. And this is just a fun series that we're doing every Thursday where we're bringing you some sort of list that relates to books. This week, it's here. These are the top 10 best books that I read in 2017. This was hard. This was a hard list to come up with. It's like picking your favorite children. It was hard, but I did it. I'm comfortable with it. And this is going to be in no particular order. I will save my number one favorite read for last. So the last one that I talk about will be my favorite book of the year. But everything else is just, it's in the top, no particular order. All right, the first one here is one that you guys told me to read, and that's It by Stephen King. I loved this. This book was just the right amount of crazy, just the right amount of creepy, just the right amount of really making you think and giving you nightmares. I didn't have nightmares myself, but I could see how people would. When I was walking around my house at night, I kind of wanted to have all the lights on. I didn't like walking around in the dark. I walked a little faster, and it was fantastic. Super long, but I really think it's worth it. There is a lot of backstory in here, which I think is important. It's a lot of backstory to the town that they lived in and things that happened in the past, which kind of helped create why some of the people who live there are the way that they are. And I just loved it. I really, really loved it. And I'm not a big fan of clowns anymore. Next one is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. I have loved every single Colleen Hoover book that I have read so far. This was no exception. This was, it might be my favorite. If it's not my favorite, it's very, very close to another one. But this one I just devoured. I loved it. I loved the story. I loved the characters. I loved just the way that it went up and down and you never knew which way it was going to go. I loved it. The next one is The Shack, and this is written by William Paul Young. And I loved this book, you guys. Wow. Such a great love story to the Lord. Like, it really is. And I have not seen the movie. I really want to watch it now. I've heard the movie is very good as well. And this one is a very beat up copy, so I actually ended up annotating this one. I didn't write down as much as I thought I was going to, but I did like underline quite a few things and kind of wrote a little notes here and there throughout it. But the story was beautiful. I absolutely loved it. And if you are a believer, I think you should definitely be reading this book. It's fantastic. The next one is from a genre that I have been getting much more into lately and been kind of collecting some books and reading them and really enjoying them. And that is Salt to the Sea by Rita Sepetys. This is a historical fiction. This one is a young adult. And this follows a true thing that happened in history where there is a ship that is carrying German refugees and it sinks. It was attacked and sinks. And it was actually the most devastating, as far as the death toll goes, maritime accident in history, above Titanic. However, no one's really heard about it because the German government decided to cover that up because they didn't want that on their record as part of the war. So it was so good though. It follows, I believe, 5 different people, and they are kind of traveling together to flee from Germany because they are being attacked by Russia. And you get all their stories and all their perspectives. It was so good. It was really, really good. I really enjoyed it a lot. This next one is a book that was sent to me for review, and it was a big surprise on how much I loved it. And that is Hum If You Don't Know the Words by Bianca Maris. And this one follows a young white girl who lives in South Africa and an older African-American woman who is kind of set in charge of taking care of her after her parents pass away. And this older woman is actually going through something where she's trying to find her biological daughter because her biological daughter is missing, and she went missing amid kind of a big uprising against the government, and it was very violent, and now she can't find her daughter, and this little girl helps her, and it was just such a great relationship between the two, and just seeing how they're helping each other, and I just loved it. It was definitely a big surprise. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. The next one is actually a book that I don't have in physical form. I did read it on my Kindle, and that is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I loved this book. It is very sciencey. There's a heavy emphasis on science in this book, but I was able to still follow it. A little bit of it went over my head, but it didn't bother me. I still just really enjoyed the story. This follows a man who is kind of a retired teacher, if you will, in the science field, or a scientist, and he decides to stop his work and spend more time with his family. So that's what he decided to do. And it was kind of a devastating loss to the field because he was considered like one of the best in his field. He is coming home one night from a bar. He gets attacked and knocked out, and he wakes up in this warehouse where the people who took him kind of show him things that are happening. And it turns out that he is in a different dimension of his life. It's insane. And he's trying to find his way back to his family, but every time he is able to get to them, it's a different version of them. They're still the same people, but it's different things are happening. And it's so incredibly interesting. He can't figure out which is the real version of his life. He doesn't know which one is real. It was so good. There was so much action. It kept you guessing the whole time and like what in the world is going on and how is all this happening. And then there's science that's going along with it, so you're trying to figure that out too. It was fantastic. I loved it. The next one that I read and absolutely loved was Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. I loved this book. I devoured it so quickly. It kept me guessing the entire time. I actually buddy read this with my friend Jennifer, and we were both just like trying to guess things that were happening, and we couldn't figure it out. And I just loved it. It was really juicy and lots of good drama in it. I did end up watching the miniseries as well that went along with it, that was on HBO, I believe, and it was fantastic. It was really, really good. It pretty much followed the book, except there was one little liberty that they took with one of the main characters that I didn't love so much, and I'll explain that when I talk about the TV shows that I'm binging. I'm going to do a follow-up for that in January, so I'll talk more about that later. But other than that, like, the miniseries was just fantastic, and they are coming out with the season 2, so that'll be very interesting because season 1 ended with the book. Like, it was this entire book in that, so it'll be interesting to see where it goes on from here. And I believe Leanne Moriarty is writing a story for them to follow, so it's not just going to be them taking their own liberties. It's going to still be her stories with these characters and everything, so I think that's very interesting, but I absolutely love this. The next one that I read is actually my most anticipated release of 2017, and so I pre-ordered it and got it, and I read it pretty soon after it came out, and that's Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I loved this book. Not everyone does, and I understand that. I personally loved it because I love books that are set in like a circus or a carnival or something like that, some sort of magic show. I just absolutely fall in love with those, and every single one I've read so far I've absolutely loved, including this one. This was so atmospheric, and the way that she wrote this book, I could easily picture everything happening, and it was just so magical. I just loved it. This follows two sisters who want to go to the show, which is called Caraval, and it's kind of like a once a year type of thing, and you have to have a specific invite from the creator. And our main character is trying so hard to get to the show. She's writing him constantly, requesting tickets for her and her sister. They finally are granted those tickets, so they go to the show, and they end up being part of it without realizing it. So the show has plans for them, and it's so good. You're trying to figure out this mystery. You're also trying to figure out, number one, her sister disappears. So that's what happens, and you're trying to figure out where her sister is. And number two, you're trying to figure out what is real and what isn't, because this is a magic show. So you're sitting here like watching them interact with people and wondering, are these people even real? Are these different versions of different people? Like, you don't know what's real and what's not. So you're really trying to figure all this stuff out along with the characters. And I loved it. It was so great. There is a sequel coming out, I believe, in May. I want to say it's May. I know it's the first half of the year in 2018. I remember if it's March or May, one of those two. And I will definitely be picking that up, and it's going to be called Legendary. So that will be pre-ordered for sure. But I loved this. I loved it so much. And we are down to the last two. And this was hard, trying to narrow it down between these two. So this one that I'm going to be talking about now is Behind Our Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. I loved this. I loved this, and it really made me interested in her as an author, and I have read more from her since that I've loved as well. Okay, this is an adult psychological thriller. It follows a woman who has kind of a one-night makeout session with this new guy, kind of a drunken thing. And she is a single mother, and she doesn't normally do that. So, it's kind of like a weird thing for her. She goes into work the next day. Lo and behold, that guy is her new boss. Yeah, she's a secretary. And her new boss is the guy that she had a drunken makeout session with the night before. And he's married. So you are following this budding relationship and following this marriage between her boss and his wife, because it's very strange. She's getting a lot of different kind of red flag vibes from the marriage that's going on, and she can't figure it out, but she kind of immerses herself into their marriage, basically. And that's all I'm going to say, because a lot of stuff happens. And the ending, I can't with the ending. It had one of those crazy endings where you just go, what? What just happened? I didn't see it coming. It completely shocked me. That's all I'm going to say. It was fantastic. I loved it. It's gritty. It's an adult for sure. And yeah, I loved it so much. Okay, we are down to the number one book, my absolute favorite that I read in 2017, and that is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Okay, I have to gear myself up to talk about this book because it had such an impact on me. This is a World War II historical fiction. It follows two sisters, Vienne and Isabel, and they are living in France during the time when Germany was occupying it. So Germany has kind of taken over Paris and taking over the smaller town that these girls are from. So they have German soldiers coming in and basically policing the cities there. Okay. These two girls are polar opposites. Vienne is the older sister. She kind of internalizes everything. So she thinks about things, she thinks them through, she doesn't make rash decisions, she does what she needs to do to survive, basically, which I feel like is something that I would have done in that situation. And I would have just tried to survive it, basically just done what I had to do, whatever. It even is to a point where a German soldier lives in their house because he needs a place to stay. So he lives in their house. She's basically housing him. And I'm not going to say that they were like on friendly terms by any means, but she had to cook dinner for him, and they were cohabitants. Is that the right word? Cohabitants in the same house? Isabel, on the other hand, is polar opposite. She is the epitome of a feminist. She believes in rights for everybody. She will fight tooth and nail. She says whatever is on her mind. She doesn't care who's around to hear it. She doesn't care who you are. She will tell you what she thinks. She just wants to save people. She wants to help people. And her safety doesn't matter to her. She will just do whatever she needs to do and, help people. To her detriment, just about. Because she gets herself into pretty bad situations because of her thought processes and her decision making. Okay, so you're following both of them. There's also a dual timeline where the book starts out like kind of in today's world, and it's following one of these sisters, and you are kind of seeing them reflect back on their time in the war. So it goes a little bit back and forth, not too much. It's mostly in the past, but there is a future present as well. And just the things that happened in here, oh my gosh, the things these two girls went through was just insanity. And I never think about these things being a reality because it happened so long ago, but I know that these things happened. I've read about them and, learned about them in school, but just seeing them again, like right in your face and with characters that you're just completely falling in love with and you care about them, it's just heartbreaking. It's so good, you guys. This is one of the best books I've ever read. It really is. It's going up in my top 10 of all time for sure. And I highly recommend it to everybody. Everybody, even if you don't like historical fiction, I really think that everybody should read this because it's such an eye-opener. I was never bored. I was always just so incredibly interested in what was happening and wanting to know what was going to happen. I had so much adoration for both of these women, even though they're so different. And they just each brought their own purpose to what was going on around them. It was so good. I would give this 50 stars if I could. It's so good. All right, guys, that is it. Those are the top 10 books that I read in 2017. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what your favorite book was for 2017, and let me know if you've read any of these on this list and what you thought as well. And I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day. Bye.